So in limits number 2, we're just going to go more in depth with what we were saying about this concept of the limit. So one thing I did at the beginning of this paper is I took our familiar expression for r of delta t that we've been dealing with, and I put the 2, I used the 2 to cancel the 3750 and cancel the 2 here. So this is reducing out a factor of 2. All right, so this is just reducing a factor of 2. Now, when delta t is not equal to 0, this simplifies to just this, and then if I distribute the 1.17, I get this. And so here's one thing that's remarkable about that. There's that limit, negative 2193.75. And really, looking at the equation this way, it makes sense that the limit would be negative 2193.75 because what we're basically saying is that delta t is approaching 0. So as the delta t approaches 0, this term is going to approach 0. Now we can't allow delta t to be equal to 0, but as the delta t approaches 0, this term is going to get smaller and smaller, and all you're going to be left with is the negative 2193.75. How close can we get to that? The smallest positive real number, which doesn't exist. So in other words, we can get infinitesimally close, arbitrarily close. All right, so we're going to look a little bit at what that means. So you should read through some of this stuff, and then we're asking when delta t equals 20, what's the value of r of delta t? All right, so that's easy enough to do. So for number 1 there, r of 20, what is it? And of course, as usual, if you haven't already done this, you should do as much of this as you can on your own first before you start looking at the videos. So hopefully by now you've looked at the video. So I've already set up this equation in my TI there. I've set it up in my y equals section. So that way, when I'm in the home screen, I can just go, I'm going to clear everything and start from scratch here. So I can just go vars, y-vars function y1 and say of 20, and I get negative 2661.75, so negative 2661.75. It's meters per second, but I'm going to leave that off for now. All right, so question number 2 says, how close is this to the limit value? So our limit value is this, L equals negative 2193.75. That's what we're going to call the limit value of the function. All right. We want to know how close we're getting, and what I'm talking about here is what do we mean in mathematics when we say how close? When we say how close is something to something else, we're asking what is the distance to it. Distance is given by the absolute value of a difference. So that's what I'm talking about here. Absolute value is designed to describe distance. Distance is always positive. The distance is absolute value of b minus a. That's the distance from a to b. All right, so we're using that absolute value of b minus a, or in this case, absolute value of r of 20 minus L, to describe how close something is. How close is r of 20 to L? That mathematically means what is the absolute value of r20 minus L. All right, so we know what r of 20 is. So for number 2, we can just answer the question, what is the absolute value of r of 20 minus L? So that is the absolute value of negative 2661.75 minus negative 2193.75. So, if I want to get that on my calculator, I can sort of simplify some things by saying, all right, why don't I go this number plus 2193.75 and then just change the sign. So absolute value means I want the positive value, so I'm going to take 468. So that's just a calculator shortcut that I pulled. But, you could type all this into your calculator. Oh, and I was going to mention, by the way, how do I do absolute value on my calculator if it was something more complicated? Well, you can do this. You can hit the button that says math. I'm always entertained by the fact that you have a calculator and there's a button on it that says math. Like, isn't it all math? Math, num for numerical. And then the first thing you get is abs, absolute value. No, it's not going to give you great abs. I wish it would, but it's not going to. It's for absolute value. And then just to show, the syntax on the calculator, so I would put in negative 2661.75. I could probably just mentally change the minus negative to a plus, and then put the 2193.75. And of course, this is all overkill for getting an answer that I already knew a simpler way, but I just wanted to show that that's where absolute value is on the calculator. You go math, number, and then you got all kinds of cool things like absolute value, integer, min, max, lots of things. But we used absolute value. Okay, more on this next.